Canada. A cold, isolated wasteland inhabited mainly by polar bears, beavers, and reindeer. The barren terrain is covered by snow for the entire year, so that only the most adventurous individual can scrape a living in the harsh environment. The few people who do live in this country build igloos to live in and ride on moose to get around. The most technologically advanced even drive snowmobiles. The typical Canadian diet consists of maple syrup, beaver tails, and polar bear meat. That's not true. Hey everyone, my name's Belle. I'm an indie comic artist who also happens to be from Canada. Obviously, the first 30 seconds of this video were a joke. The truth is, Canada's a lot more than just a chunk of ice sitting on top of the United States. This culturally and geographically diverse country has a lot to offer, like national parks, cool historical sites, interesting culture, and Jim Carrey. So in this video, I will provide an overview of all Canada has to offer, starting off with political and physical geography. Canada is the second largest country by land area, with Russia being the first. It also has the longest coastline of any country, 151,485 miles to be exact. However, Canada has a fairly low population density of approximately 8 people per square mile. The country is divided into 10 provinces: British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland and Labrador, New Brunswick, and my personal favorite, Prince Edward Island. It's the heart of the world! Anyway, there are also 3 territories: Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Nunavut, which was part of the Northwest Territories until 1999. The capital is Ottawa, and the largest city is Toronto. The landscape of Canada varies quite a bit from coast to coast. BC is famous for its beautiful trees and mountains, making an excellent place for a hiking trip. Alberta shares the Rocky Mountains with BC and is home to the lovely Banff National Park. Saskatchewan is so flat that you can watch your dog run away for days. Or so I've heard. Manitoba is like Minnesota because of all its lakes, and the southern region of the province has a lot of fertile land ideal for farming. The Canadian Shield creates a rugged terrain around the Hudson Bay and covers almost half the country, including the provinces of Ontario and Quebec. Atlantic Canada has a lot of rugged mountains and coastlines. Also, the dirt in PEI is red. That's very important. Obviously, Canada is very cold, but believe it or not, there are actually deserts up here. Okay, that's not entirely true. The closest thing we have to a desert is Osoyoos in the Okanagan region of BC, which has too much moisture to be truly considered a desert. The rest of Canada is cold for most of the year. Some areas start getting snow in September, and spring doesn't really start until May. A lot of the eastern regions of BC have a nice spring weather for 2 weeks, and then it just switches to hot and gross with mosquitoes. Ugh. The 3 territories are so cold, in fact, that a layer of frost stays just below the ground all year, allowing only small shrubs and mosses to grow. In some areas, people leave their cars running while they do errands just to keep them warm. How car theft and carbon monoxide poisoning aren't more common, I will never know. Pro tip, do not buy a Tesla if you live in Canada, because it will not start in the snow. That happened to someone my mom knows once. In contrast to the other provinces, southwestern BC enjoys mild winters with lots of rain. We usually only get 2 weeks of snow between January and February. The first snowfall really brings out how unaccustomed British Columbians are to your average Canadian winter, because as soon as the first flakes hit the ground, someone's car is gonna end up in the ditch. That shouldn't be funny, but it kind of is. Anyway, let's talk about Canada's history! There are several theories as to how the indigenous tribes in North America came to settle the land. One popular suggestion is that they crossed a land or ice bridge over the Bering Strait. Regardless, the cultural regions of the indigenous tribes extend from Canada into the US. After the natives came the Vikings, who arrived in Newfoundland around AD 1000, and you can still visit their earth dwellings at the L'Anse Meadows National Historic Site. I definitely didn't say that right, but we're moving on. Canada's name is derived from the Huron-Iroquois word Kanata, which means village or settlement. When 2 indigenous boys told French explorer Jacques Cartier about the route to Kanata, he started referring to all the land as Kanata, and not just the village the 2 boys had been talking about. And the name has stuck ever since. Work began on the Canadian Confederation at the Charlottetown Conference in 1864, and on July 1st, 1867, the Dominion of Canada was formed. And now we celebrate Canada Day on July 1st every year. Alright, now we get to the fun part. Culture! Canada has 2 official languages, English and French, meaning that all our food labels have to list all the ingredients in both languages. French is most commonly spoken in Quebec, but there are plenty of French speakers elsewhere. I'm a little ashamed to admit that I am not fluent in French, but recently I've started learning the language so I won't feel like a foreigner in my own country every time I'm in the Montreal airport. Also, Canadians spell things differently from Americans. Like, instead of spelling color C-O-L-O-R, we spell it C-O-L-O-U-R. I can still remember my mom taking marks off my spelling tests if I spelled words the American way instead of the Canadian way. Another thing, Canadian accents sound like American accents, which makes sense seeing as most Canadians live within 100 miles of the US-Canadian border. It does mean that when we travel to other countries, most people assume we're Americans, and it doesn't bother me. I like America, but at the same time, we're literally Canadian. Learn the difference. Canada is home to many creative minds, like me. There's also the BC painter Emily Carr, who has lots of beautiful paintings, like this one, and this one, and this one. The band Nickelback is from here, too, apparently. Fun fact, the only reason I know about Nickelback is because they did a concert in my area this past summer, and everyone was talking about it, but to this day, the only song I know is, "Look at this photograph!" Probably the best Canadian artist of any kind is Lucy Maud Montgomery, the author of Anne of Green Gables, which has at least 4 film adaptations and is really popular in Japan, apparently. Obviously, we can't talk about Canada without at least mentioning hockey. I think Canada's love for hockey is somewhat romanticized by other countries. I once read somewhere that said, Canadians are practically born with skates on their feet, which is not true, but maybe I'm just saying that because I've never cared about sports of any kind. Hockey is quite a big thing around here, but I don't really watch sports, and the whole NHL Stanley Cup thing has always confused me. Like, what do you mean the Oilers didn't win? They literally won the last game I saw on TV at the restaurant. What do you mean they have to play 5 more games? If anyone asks, I'm an Oilers fan, cause that's the team my pastor likes. Believe it or not, we have rodeos in Canada too. The biggest and most famous Canadian rodeo is the Calgary Stampede in Alberta, which I have not seen, but I've heard is quite impressive. Honestly, Alberta is just Canadian Texas. I mean, they got farms, rodeos. It's literally just Texas. So, random side note about Alberta, you can get your driver's license at 14. 14! That is insane. I don't think most 16-year-olds are ready to learn to drive, and yet, over in Alberta, they're just letting 14-year-olds drive in cars, which is stupid. Now, I've saved the best aspect of Canada for last. Food. Or rather, what is Canadian food? Because Canada doesn't seem to have much of anything in terms of national cuisine other than Tim Hortons and maple syrup. Don't worry, we still have plenty of options to choose from. Because Canada is such a culturally diverse country, you can find food from all over the world here, especially if you go to a big city like Vancouver or Toronto. I actually got to try Moroccan food last time I visited Vancouver, which was amazing. We also have poutine, which is just French fries with cheese curds and gravy, but there are variations. One restaurant I went to served butter chicken poutine, which sounded way too heavy, so I didn't end up having any. Tim Hortons is also very good. It's best known for its coffee and donuts, but they serve other things too. In my opinion, the perfect Tim Hortons meal is a habanero chicken loaded bowl with a medium iced coffee. I rarely drink coffee because it keeps me up at night, but Tim Hortons iced coffee is so good I just can't help myself. It's also not as strong as Starbucks coffee, which is really nice. Also, we call donut holes Timbits, because that is the correct name. I am still really mad at Tim Hortons for taking poutine off their menu. Like, it's literally, you are the Canadian restaurant, and poutine is the Canadian food. Why would you take it off? And they also took their cinnamon buns off the menu, which makes me so mad. Like, why would you do that, Tim Hortons? I love you, but why would you do that? Believe it or not, moose steaks are also a thing. I've never had them, but I've heard they're pretty good. But probably the best Canadian food is ketchup chips. To all my American friends who have not had ketchup chips, you're missing out, big time. Ketchup chips. In conclusion, Canada is a great country with a diverse culture and lots of cool sights to see. Yes, it's cold, but it still has lots of other stuff going for it, and snow isn't so bad. You have to shovel it out of your driveway, but still quite magical. Definitely come to visit if you have time. You know, recording this video has made me realize how un-Canadian I am. Like, I don't play hockey, I've never had moose steaks, and I can barely have a conversation in French. Can I really consider myself a Canadian? Or am I just a fraud?